Welcome to Talking Point Live. It's November 16th, and we're coming to you here from the Holland Library lobby at the Dixie State University campus, courtesy of our CEC crew. I'm Jennifer Kohler, and this is...
So you two can play at this game.
Yes, two can play.
And if you don't know this by now, I'm Eric Young. Whether you like it or not, here we are. And yeah, we're coming to you live again now on the Community Education channel. Hopefully you're watching us there. And if not there, you can find us on our Facebook page, broadcasting live at facebook.com/TalkingPointLive. And there, the reason why we do that is to engage you in some kind of conversation, to talk back to us during the show, because I'm monitoring it right here. Even though there's about an 8-second delay, I can go through and see if you have any comments and go through and add that to our discussion here on air. So don't be shy. Please go through and let us know if you'd like to have anything to say. We can go through and, you know, with some reason, talk about that on the show as we go along. And before we launch into things, though, I do want to bring our viewers' attention to a new monument that's here on Dixie State University's campus. It's a new Veterans Memorial. It's on the northeast side of the Encampment Mall here on campus. It's a project of the Veterans organization here on campus that was headed up by Anthony Cerrito. I want to put out a, what's the vernacular for that? I want to say, hey, good job.
Shout out.
A shout out. There we go. Yeah, see, it's getting old. I want to put out a shout out to Anthony and everybody who worked hard on that. Home Depot also donated and dedicated a lot of time and effort to putting that in. I've put a photograph of that on our website, or on the Facebook page, so take a look there. Come on campus and take a look. It's quite.
We had a very nice presentation, ribbon cutting on Veterans Day last Thursday, I think it was, or Friday. Friday, yeah, Friday was Veterans Day. It was very nice. Yes.
Kind of unified things a little bit that way, I think.
Yes, it was very nice to be together as a community and honor the 5 branches of the military.
A little bit of a break from all the divisiveness that's been going on.
Right. Yeah. So do you want to tell, or should I tell, what happened at breakfast this morning?
Well,
okay, we meet for breakfast, not at the same place at our houses, but at a restaurant here in town. Let's be clear about that, where we have breakfast. And we meet for breakfast.
It's at Bishop's, and it's a good breakfast.
It is a good breakfast. And we meet there typically on Wednesday mornings at 7 and try to figure out what we are going to focus on at 9 o'clock on Wednesday mornings.
We arm wrestle, rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, I walked in there feeling pretty upbeat and optimistic, as is my usual demeanor in the morning.
It's time to take that down.
Yeah, and by the time I finished my pancakes, I was feeling like I wanted to cry into my pancakes. And I'm actually okay with that.
You know, if you drank coffee, you'd feel a little better.
Actually, you think that's what it was? I think what it was is I have a hard time wrapping my head around some of the negativity going on in our own little corner of the garden here in Washington County. And Eric was busy bursting my bubble, sharing some things with me that I find disturbing. And so do you want to share a little bit with the audience what you were telling me about?
Yeah, in terms of Washington County, there's not a whole lot going on. I had the wonderful opportunity to have dinner with my daughter yesterday afternoon, who attends a local high school here. And over the course of our conversation, I asked her, so what's the climate like at your school and what's going on? She goes, nothing really, other than, you know, we've got kids, boys walking through the hall chanting, build the wall, build the wall. And that took me, I don't know why, it really shouldn't have taken me by surprise, because I still have a tendency, I guess, to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and especially living in Washington County, where I kind of think, well, that doesn't happen in my neighborhood. We're pretty well okay with things that are going on. But, and that's no barometer, I think, to go by in terms of if there is an inherent either a malaise, a bad feeling in the county, or if there's this inherent, hey, we won and we're beating our chests, and so now everything from this point on is not going to have anything to do with any of those darn liberals.
Well, you know, you're reminding me just now when you said that of Jonathan Haidt's TED Talk that I just saw the other day called How Do We Heal This Divide? And he was saying because we are tribal cultures, that sports and politics are the battlefields for our tribes to fight it out without actually doing physical damage to one another and like actually going to war. So politics and sports are where we get super hyper tribal.
We do,
Right,
and we, regardless of how the game ends, we seem to still walk away holding on to our tribalness, our tribality, our tribe.
Our scalps we've collected,
Good,
yeah.
okay. But especially this, well, I can't say that because as we were talking about at breakfast time, we had the same type of reaction to Obama's candidacy win, to his presidential wins, both in 2008 and in 2012 as well. There's still a division going on, and nobody, well, it seemed like many didn't get over that. And now there's this call out for those who are resistant to accepting President-elect Trump to get over it. And those people are saying, no, I'm not going to. In fact, that was kind of the gist of our conversation this morning as well. I don't know if we completely, though, fleshed out the concept that you wanted to get into about bursting your bubble, about Washington County, or at least St. George, local attitudes that are going on now.
Right. Well, what's made me start to think about it is I really feel like the thing for us to do as citizens and neighbors, community members, is to band together and be empathetic with one another and try to heal the crazy divisions that have been our life for the last year or two while this campaign's been going on. So, but at the very same time that I want to express this idea of empathy, I guess what I need to do is I'm not feeling particularly threatened at all in a personal way by the results of the election. And I think it's because I'm a white person in America and I live in what I consider kind of a safety bubble. I consider Utah rather a bubble and Washington County a bubble, and a really wonderful place to live. I feel very safe and protected here, but it's probably because of my race. So, and also I'm a member of the majority, persuasion, religion here. So I feel very at home and safe here.
You're in the bubble here, certainly.
Right, but then you made the comment, you said, well, I put a Obama bumper sticker on my car and people spit on my car. And I'm like, I'm mortified, absolutely mortified to hear that. Like, that's not the community I experience here. That's not the community I think I live in. So when I hear things like that, or I hear things where high schoolers are, are they taunting their classmates? Are they gloating? Are they bragging? Are they celebrating? And what's behind the urge to repeatedly emphasize, this idea of build the wall, for example, at that high school. So I'm wondering, what's going on at that high school? What's the culture?
It's not just what's going on at that high school, it's what's going on in the country. The Southern Poverty Law Center has recorded 437 incidents like this or others where that escalated into more violence that requires some type of intervention, either with law enforcement or just bystanders going through and separating people out who are lashing out at people of color, lashing out at women, lashing out at people of who are showing a different religious affiliation. So it's not, I think we're relatively benign here in Washington County if that's all that's going on. We have, so there's this pickup truck that runs around the county. It's a red Chevy late model. On the bumper, on the tailgate of it, it says something to the effect that Hillary blows, but Obama sucks, or maybe it's the other way around. There's another vehicle in the back light of it. It's a sport utility vehicle. It says, and I need to be very careful here in how I say this, Buck Ofama on the back window of the vehicle.
Okay.
And we reel from that. On the one hand, we want to go through and say, these are remnants of that divisiveness that the country has experienced for 8 years, and now we're surprised that we still have divisiveness with the election of Donald Trump. And I'm thinking, well, that's kind of silly because the divisiveness really never went away to begin with.
Right.
Did it?
No, apparently not. Apparently not. And so.
But you feel though, as a white woman of the predominant faith living in the predominant bubble that way, that you're not threatened by that change. Did you ever feel threatened by the Obama change?
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
No, I felt when Obama was elected, I felt like that enfranchised a huge segment of our American population that had told themselves they were disenfranchised and not part of the electorate. And I felt like his presidency was proof of the fact that they are part of this system, and they are enfranchised. So I thought that was, I did not feel the least bit threatened.
Okay.
But then maybe I live in a world of denial to a certain degree, and maybe I am somewhat of a Pollyanna, perhaps.
I think I didn't use that word Pollyanna, but I kind of maybe hinted to that to you this morning.
You did. And when we were talking about empathy, I thought, well, maybe I need to figure out how to be more empathetic than I am with people who are unhappy about the results. So I think we mentioned last week that, you know, what do you do as a person here, and what do you do as a citizen to react to this opportunity or this challenge or this mess that we have,
Are you
however
sure
you want to frame it?
You want to go there? I mean, empathy requires a bit of a risk on our part to go through and say, well, in order for me to understand how you're feeling, I'm going to go there. I mean, actors who practice certain levels of empathy run a risk of some level of psychosis if their character truly is psychotic. Heath Ledger really is one of the victims of that. Do we want to be empathetic to that extent? Are we willing to go to that level? You're talking about... Can I spill the beans on your little test that you want to do? Because I'm going to hold you to this.
Okay.
You're talking.
You are?
So,
Yeah, already
Jen's talking
had
about,
second thoughts.
No. And I said, I'm a little afraid for you if you do this. So you talked about maybe going to your church whenever, I'm assuming this coming weekend, wearing, supporting a Hillary button to see if you're treated any differently. Right. And so maybe the cat's out of the bag now, not that anybody's really watching the show, but I'd be interested to see how that turns out.
So even after I promoted that possibility, and I said, that's what I really need to do in order to really be empathetic with people who are suffering right now and feeling threatened, actually threatened by the outcome of the election. Maybe what I need to do is make myself a target to a certain degree and see what it's like to be unpopular in the community where I live, and to be subject to some of the negativity that other people are experiencing.
I would like to think that doing that in the context of church, it's not going to be that big of a deal for you, because I would like to think that not only are we on our best behavior, but we're also trying to go through and maybe live the principles that we ascribe to. What I'm going to challenge you to do is to put a Hillary bumper sticker.
I knew you were going to say that.
On
my car. Well, I don't want my car to be vandalized. Now I'm really worried that there's just, all it takes is like one person, and then I have this, I have this scar on my car. So maybe I am a chicken, and maybe I am afraid, and maybe I just only want to be empathetic as far as my imagination will carry me. Maybe I don't really want to feel.
I would never want you to be in that situation, and I'm kidding about the whole bumper sticker thing.
But
for all intents and purposes,
why should I have to be worried about it, right?
My car wasn't vandalized, and this wasn't just like spit; it was spit.
Ew, gross.
It was dried on, caked on kind of thing, and the car wash took care of that as things go. It wasn't really vandalized. The only thing that was vandalized really was my own maybe sense of civic involvement here within this community. But that being the case, so I find it interesting that you want to put yourself in a situation to be able to feel maybe the angst that people of color, people of different religions, well, you are a woman there, so you already are somehow in that vulnerable area just by virtue of your gender. But you don't feel
that way. No, I don't. But I haven't ever been victimized. I really haven't. I'm kind of a little Nerf ball, one of my friends said. So... maybe I need, I'm not asking to be victimized by any means or asking to be picked on, but maybe in my efforts to be empathetic, my imagination can only take me so far.
So beyond these trite little ideas of church and a parking lot kind of a thing, how can you socially or maybe even psychologically empathize perhaps with what's...
So far what I have done is last week I made a point of talking to one of my colleagues at school who's very, very, very sad, very unhappy, and feels very threatened by the results of the election. And I knew this person would be feeling this way. So I made a point of finding that person and having a conversation with that person to see how they were feeling. And we talked for at least an hour or so about what had happened and why they were feeling alienated and isolated and vulnerable. And that helped me, to a certain degree, to empathize. And I reached out deliberately because I wanted that person to know that we're in the same community with each other, and that we should talk about these kinds of things, and we should be able to, have difference of opinions or difference of perceptions, and it's totally safe to feel differently about things, and that we should find opportunities to work together, find the common ground and be empathetic. So that's the first thing that I've done so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
After our show last week, I left the set and walked over to our office to get ready for the day, for the classes and such. And we have a large screen TV in the lobby of our office. And Debbie, our department administrative assistant, had put up the CBS feed that was showing Hillary Clinton's concession speech that had just started the moment we had walked into the office. And I was taken aback by the amount of emotional responses that were happening right there as we watched what was going on. And about 5 minutes into the speech, our department chair comes walking in, Brent Jurgensen, who is, he's our dean, actually, not our chair. But I have a great deal of respect for him, and he aligns himself with conservative ideas, and I'm sure voted according to his conscience in that respect. But when he walked in and saw just two of us and heard maybe some of the sniffling going on in the background behind us as well, his face immediately changed countenance into one of concern and love, frankly. And it was immediately empathetic without having to imagine what it is that we're feeling. He was able to go through and see that and embrace that and say, I'm with you, we're going to get through this, and that was it. And that was enough, really, for anything to go on, any kind of I don't want to call it a healing, because I really don't feel injured by this, but I do feel frightened by it because of our kids as things go.
So very small examples, these last two.
What I'm saying is it doesn't take a whole lot.
It does not.
We don't have to go through and meditate and think about, and it's just a matter of acting upon how you're feeling. But some people have that and some people don't. Some people are like, well, finally we're in a position of power and control. And other people are like, I feel like now I'm being the oppressed.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to be, yes.
Well,
or I am being by people. On the same token, you were saying it doesn't take a lot to have a big effect in the positive. It also doesn't take a lot to have a big effect in the negative.
Right.
So.
Well, we seem to embrace the negative much easier than we do go through and embrace.
We do, but I don't think a lot of us, some of the people who are making these acts of maybe aggression, or maybe just expressing their happiness with the results, or being in any way intimidating or insulting or any negative behavior, I don't think they realize a lot of the times how powerful that is.
Okay.
In their environment, in their culture,
Right.
and onto other people.
So let me dovetail into that with this concept of a few ideas in communication theory then. There are a number of axioms that we talk about in teaching interpersonal communication and other comm theory approaches having to do with communication. One being that communication is packaged, another one being that communication is rule governed. There are certain rules, implicit or explicit, that we obey. The communication is irreversible, that it's inevitable, that it's unrepeatable. And so we can apply that towards what it is that you're talking about in those terms.
Okay.
If an individual happens to support a safety pin, for example, and we're seeing those pop up here on campus. If you're not aware of what that symbolizes or what the safety pin is a signifier for, it means that, are you aware of this? Because you're looking at me like you have no idea what it is I'm talking about.
See, I am.
Interesting. So the safety pin goes through it and is a signifier that the wearer is basically a safe person to be around.
Oh, I want one of those.
See how you are?
Yeah.
Right.
I want one of those.
And this signifier, it came out of the whole Brexit fiasco when people were fighting back or hating against immigrants there in Great Britain, and Brits who felt empathy, and those who wanted to step up and maybe protect and support those who were being lashed out against began wearing a safety pin somewhere on their clothing. So now we have that same safety pin drive happening here in the United States, and a number of faculty have that going on too. I don't have one there in that respect. My point to that, though, is that is part of the package.
Okay.
The fact that communication is a package means that there are both verbal and nonverbal cues that are happening within that. And how we go through then and interpret those artifacts that we might be wearing. The last show that we did, you still had your earpiece in your ear, and I accused you maybe of having an IFB that the producers were talking into your ear that way. Well, that is a signifier and an artifact that goes through and tells me something that was a complete assumption on my part. It wasn't true. And that's the problem with this idea that communication is packaged, is because most of us are operating on assumptions. If we go through and see somebody and they happen to have a tattoo, or they happen to have a kind of piercing, or they happen to be wearing cowboy boots, whatever the case might be, we go through and add a label then to what that artifact might go through and signify.
Right.
When in fact, our assumptions are completely off base.
Okay, good. So what you're saying is we communicate verbally and non-verbally, and when we read each other's communication verbally and non-verbally, we need to be a little bit circumspect in the conclusions that we draw from the message.
You stave off the conclusions as much as you possibly can, and then you search for more information, you ask questions, you actually engage in dialogue with the individual, and go through and start talking. And what better way to go through and say, hey, I noticed you have a safety pin on your lapel. What does that mean? Could you explain that to me? And that opens it up, and suddenly we're starting to get away from perhaps certain assertions that are being made. The rules that are explicit and implicit, we have certain rules that we go by. We don't drop profanity while we're speaking or while we're teaching or during the show. We have some level of integrity and honesty that's expected, even though we're not always rising to that occasion.
But are these expectations, these rules you're talking about, are they completely homogenous across the United States? So
yeah, it depends.
No and yes?
If you and I are talking about somebody in North Carolina and I say, well, bless his heart, there's a rule there.
Yes, you're about to slam that person, and you're prefacing it with a bless his heart.
Implicitly gone through and slammed them just with that.
Yeah.
So culturally, we have certain idioms that we're putting out there, right? So it changes. But I think some of the premises are pretty universal.
Well, what about, for example, my friend that's from back east, she said, well, where I'm from in New Jersey, people say rude, mean things all the time, and nobody takes it completely seriously or literally. So, we can just say really outrageous, mean things,
but that's New Jersey.
But that's New Jersey. And so
Salt Lake City is starting to get the same reputation at this point.
Is it really? Well, the question then is, for example, some of us grew up in households or family cultures where the words that were spoken were taken very literally, and people, always performed on the things they said, never made threats they didn't carry out. For example, we're not given to exaggeration, hyperbole or lying, white lies. Some families have every family has its communication culture.
Right. It's a construct that you're taking out of that.
So, for example, that's the one I grew up in. It was pretty literal. What you said was what you meant. But not everybody feels that way about communication.
Well, obviously, because right now we have a president-elect who's going back on all the things that he said that people thought they were able to take to the bank.
Like, what are you thinking when you say that?
Like, what am I thinking when I say it?
Like a couple of specifics.
The revocation of the Affordable Care Act.
Okay.
And then now it's saying, well, we're going to keep all the things that are good to that. But so really, it indicates that he really didn't mean what he said in terms of what's going on. We're going to build a wall, and now we're just going to build a fence. And
some of it can be a fence.
Right. There's a lot of walking back that's going on with that. That if I had voted for President Trump, based on taking him literally, right, then I would at this point start to be a little, if not disappointed, a little leery at least, as to, well, what about all those other campaign promises?
But maybe a lot of what he's saying, he doesn't want you to take him literally.
Well, he never did. I
don't think he did, and I think a lot of people never did. They got the gist of it, and now when he actually ends up making decisions, that's going to seem perfectly normal. It's not like he's going back on anything he said, because they didn't take him literally anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we look at applying theory to that, one of the issues that comes up with, even though that communication is, one other concept, that it's irreversible, you can't take it back. You can put it out there. You've done this at some point. You've been in a fight. You said something that might have been really incendiary or vicious. Maybe in your mind or maybe you excuse yourself and say, "Oh, I didn't mean what I said." Yeah, you did mean what you said. The problem now is it's out there and you can't take it back. Well, Donald Trump's put a lot of stuff out there. He's insulted an enormous amount of people, and now it seems that he's had that luxury of being able to walk all that back as well. And the biggest fear now that seems to be trending in American press, well, in British press as well, is this normalization of Donald Trump as a result of now that he's a president-elect, we're going to go through and kind of knock off all those things and give him credit or reverse maybe what it was that he was talking
I'm
about.
perfectly willing to accept that he's going to back off of some of the things he said.
Yeah, I'm hoping he's going to back off of the
if
things
some of
he
that
said,
were to happen.
but they were still divisive. And when it comes down to this, and the reason I'm going to bring this full circle, why, as we talk about empathy, we want to be able to have some level of certainty within our, well, you know what, I can't say that. So here's what I was going to say, and I'm going to contradict myself. The person seeking for empathy for the reason of reducing uncertainty is not going to ever find it.
Okay.
And what we want right now is to reduce uncertainty. We want to know that our kids are going to be safe in school, that if I'm a person of color and if I'm on a bus in Baltimore, that I'm not going to come across any kind of retribution from
Washington
white people.
County.
Or in Washington County. Right.
Right.
So empathy requires then, and bear with me as I'm thinking this through, it requires us to be vulnerable as well, to take that risk, to be out there, not only to go through and say, well, I want to be able to understand what it is that you're feeling, not be able to feel what you're feeling, but to understand what it is that you're feeling, but I will be vulnerable enough to take the risk of doing so, to go there. We want certainty. We stick the key in the ignition and we turn it on, and when we're waiting for that mechanical miracle to happen that turns an engine over, but when nothing happens, your day is ruined, and that's the whole concept of certainty. When the power goes out, how often do you turn on the light when you walk into a room, knowing full well that there's no power? But it's more than just a habit. It's a concept of certainty.
Okay.
And so I think if we are going to get over the divisiveness, we have to get beyond the certainty that the divisiveness has provided for us, not only since last Tuesday, but also for the last 8 years or even beyond that.
Right. The divisiveness has been growing for a while, definitely. Back to this communication theory then. So, and the idea of, okay, what can we do as Washington County residents, for example, or as humans, or as Americans? I feel like making a t-shirt that says, I'm an American first, because that's how I feel. I feel like we're all in this boat together.
Aren't you a human being first?
Okay, that's even better. But I was talking about American politics and American divisiveness. But
yeah,
yes,
I've run the risk of
first,
offending all those nationalists out there in terms of saying that. But I think from that's where we need to approach this.
Yeah.
Because right now, being an American is not all that positive.
Okay, so that's...
We have a country where half the population believes that the moral compass of the other half the population doesn't work anymore.
Right.
You could pick your side on that because it applies both ways. And in that respect, we have become divided. We are divisible.
Okay, so the job is to heal that division and is to work together as neighbors. And so what are we going to do about it? So
I'm going to bake some cookies and take them over. And
have a conversation with somebody
who
you think doesn't agree with you. And it was funny because Jonathan Haidt said, well, before you had the conversation, read Dale Carnegie's book, How to Make Friends and Influence People. And so maybe I will actually look at that book.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an old standby.
Yeah.
This will be our last show until after the Thanksgiving break. We'll be back in 2 weeks that way to go through and hopefully talk about something beyond what we've been beating here.
I want to talk about social media. I just finished a novel about it.
We'll
it's
get back to that in
me.
terms of the false news, both on Google and Facebook and things that are going on.
Yeah.
Please, as you go through and read those diatribes, vet your sources before you bring anything to the Thanksgiving table to talk to your Uncle Harry about, so you don't get the rabid indigestion that's going to be because of talking politics and eating turkey.
Yes.
Jen, I'm grateful to be able to be on the show with you, and I appreciate that. And my gratitude out to our crew from the Community Education Channel. I should make it clear that they are not the producers of the show. Jen and I are. Yeah. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay.